Shalom, family. Oh, I see you, Kid Gravity. Welcome. All right, y'all, listen. We know Donald Trump stole the whole country of Venezuela, and he met with the oil executives, the biggest ones that are here in the U.S., and he had no one at the meeting that was willing to drop investments in Venezuela. Now that's really truly cursed right there. You got a whole country, and this is what he wanted. He wanted each company to invest $100 billion in the Venezuelan oil industry, and they all said no. But the one he is really mad at is the biggest of them all, which is ExxonMobil. Now, he said, like back in the 40s, they did invest. And then they went back a second time to invest in Venezuela. And the reason why they won't invest anymore is because Venezuela stole all their money both times. So they have no desire to go back to Venezuela to invest any more money. And it doesn't sound like it was a good deal in the first place. So they don't want to do it. So Donald Trump is so mad at them. He said he's not going to allow them to make future investments. Well, I don't think they're interested in future investments if they already told you on two occasions they invested in Venezuela and their money got swiped. Why would they be interested in the future when they already told you they don't want to invest any money into Venezuela? So Donald Trump is pretty butt sore over this. But, hey, Donald Trump, the Bible says when you steal someone else's land, you bring a curse down, and not only on you, but your whole generation. They're all cursed now. You're not supposed to steal people's land. That's because the Most High already divvied up the land the way he wanted it. It was never supposed to be changed. And see, when y'all came on the scene stealing everything, you changed the game. Well, that's not going to stand, Donald Trump. This is why, let it be known it is cursed when you have a whole land mass and nobody wants to invest in it. Says a lot right there, Donald Trump. So I don't know. What can Donald Trump put there that might be beneficial? Don't a lot of South America have low birth rate too? At least that's what I read. A lot of those South American countries, they're also struggling with low birth rate. So I don't know. I don't know. Isn't there a lot of old people there though? Donald Trump, maybe you can put like an adult diaper company there or something. And I don't know if them old people gonna buy it, but you might want to try something since the gas and oil thing ain't working out for you. So I think this is kind of hilarious, but I'm going to let you listen to this executive tell Donald Trump straight to his face, ain't investing in Venezuela. I guess yeah, we all should laugh. We all should laugh. We all should get a good laugh out of this one because Donald Trump, whew, he's mad. This is not what he wanted to hear at this meeting. But see, a lot of these oil executives, they got just as much money as Donald Trump, and they're not going to sit there and be intimidated by him. All right, y'all. Let me share my screen. Shalom to everybody in the chat. Okay. So this is the meeting they had And Donald Trump is just not a happy camper. And yes, this is after he stole Venezuela. After. Give me a one if you can see my screen. Okay. So, everybody, all right, let's get started.
Y'all, so yesterday, Frumpy Dump and his co-conspirators, Lil Marco Rubio, JD Vance, aka Ashley Furniture, and old ass Susie Wiles rolled out the red carpet for these oil and gas executives, honey. Y'all, they was laying it on thick because as we know, Frumpy Dump has already been bragging, saying that the oil industry has committed to investing $100 billion in to rebuild the Venezuelan oil infrastructure. Y'all know he's been saying this. Only for the CEO of ExxonMobil to get up there and say, look, we ain't commit to shit. And the reason why we haven't committed is because the Venezuelan oil industry is uninvestable. And the only way we are going to commit is if we have some sureties that this is really going to be a win for all of us. Y'all watch this. I'll see you on the other side.
With respect to Venezuela in particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. We're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government, that those changes can be put in place.
Baby, he said uninvestable. That's what he said. Now, granted, he did say if Frumpy Dump is able to deliver on all these things that, he said he can do, then we may do something. However, at this point, it's uninvestable. So stop going around here telling folks that we said we was going to give $100 billion because we ain't told you that shit. I declared it. What a disgrace. It's been about the oil the entire time, but to see the look on Susie Wild's face as this man was telling her the truth and busting their bubble, baby, this is worth $100 billion. Y'all put your thoughts in the comments. This is no demo for the accurate news. All this shit for nothing.
Have any oil companies made commitments to the United States after your meeting on Friday, sir? Yeah. Which have Exxon?
No, I didn't like Exxon's response. We have so many that want, and I'd probably be inclined to keep Exxon out. I didn't like their response. They're playing too cute.
What backstops or guarantees have you told the oil companies that you're willing to provide?
Guarantees that they're going to be safe, that there's going to be no problem, and there won't be. There's not going to be a problem. They had problems in the past because they didn't have Trump as a president. They had stupid people.
So today, the president had nearly 24 of the biggest oil executives at the White House to talk about, guess what? The opportunity that he sees ahead in Venezuela for these massive companies, and he wants them to make massive investments.
The plan is for them to spend, meaning our giant oil companies will be spending at least $100 billion of their money, not the government's money. They don't need government money. But they need government protection and need government security that when they spend all this money, it's going to be there so they get their money back and make a very nice return. The plan is for them to spend at least $100 billion to rebuild the capacity and the infrastructure necessary.
Well, there was a lot of talk about a lot of opportunity in Venezuela. The CEO of the largest company, he threw some cold water on it in his comments.
In particular, we have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system.
So you just heard it. At this moment in time, and it could change, the CEO of ExxonMobil calls Venezuela uninvestable. But could he and these other execs really just be playing a game of chicken with the president? They will go to Venezuela. They will invest when and if our government offers them more and sweetens the deal. And given what a big deal Trump is making about this, there's a good chance they're going to get their wish.
Yeah, ExxonMobil told Donald Trump to his face today, no, they won't be investing any money in oil in Venezuela. We went and spent billions of dollars deploying troops and capturing Maduro on drug charges and trying to steal their oil. And the largest oil company in the world said no. They said no. The art of the deal.
I feel like we need to start having vocabulary lessons. So I'm going to put the word uninvestable. Definition: something is impossible or highly impractical to invest in. This vocabulary word has been brought to us by the CEO of Exxon. And for MAGA, if you do not know what Exxon is, they are an oil company. Okay? So again, the word is uninvestable. And if you need to, I can do another episode on the definition of invest. Okay?
Yesterday, y'all, January 9th, Trump hosted CEOs from the ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips, right, y'all, promising U.S. protection for $100 billion in private investments to revive Venezuela's oil infrastructure. No taxpayer money was involved, they're stating, but the pitch followed Operation Absolute Resolve on January 3rd, where 20 elite operators used advanced technology like drone swarms and possible surround waves to capture Maduro without U.S. losses, as described in a loyalist stunned account, right, y'all? So the executive stayed cautious, citing risk and instability, offering only scouting teams in light moments like Trump's laughter over Rubio's note. Rubio gave him a note and told him to basically go back to Chevron, and Trump read the shit out loud. And what's crazy is a reporter had asked him, like, would you order a mission to capture the Russian president, Vladimir Putin? And Trump stated, I don't think that's going to be necessary. I always had a great relationship with him. And Russia has, y'all, 5,000 nuclear warheads. And of course, it's not fucking necessary. All right, y'all. Let's just put it like that, because he even had a moment where he basically got up and told him, hold on, so he can go take a look at his ballroom. That man is a complete fucking mockery. All right, y'all. He even stunned everyone, all the oil executives, by saying that the United States, like I said before, pour $100 billion of their own money, right, y'all, to rebuild Venezuela. So I thought this was supposed to be an America first type of thing, but apparently not. And then Vice President J.D. Vance, y'all, stated, as a Marine Corps veteran for my entire lifetime, y'all, presidents, and let's be honest, y'all, they were Democrats and Republicans, would send the American military to far off places. He said they would get us involved in these endless quagmires. They would lose hundreds or thousands of American lives, and the American people would get nothing out of these misadventures. He said, and now you have an American president who's empowered the American military to stop the flow of drugs into our country and to ensure that we, as opposed to our adversaries, control one of the great energy reserves that exists anywhere in the world, in the entire world to be exact, right, y'all? He did it without losing a single American life in the process. Let me tell y'all something, right, y'all? J.D. Vance is full of shit. Okay? That's just the one thing I want to say. The military, the United States military, full of shit. Full of shit. And I'm not saying that to insult any veteran or anyone who's in the military currently, but all of it full of shit. And this whole entire goddamn hosting thing that he did, you know what I'm saying, with all of the oil executives, it proved the point. And what's happening in Venezuela is what America is best at. And no, we all can never, ever be surprised.
We have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country. We're confident that with this administration and President Trump working hand in hand with the Venezuelan government, that those changes can be put in place. We have a very long history in Venezuela. In fact, we first got into Venezuela back in 1940s. We've had our assets seized there twice. And so you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes from what we've historically seen here and what is currently the state. If we look at the legal and commercial constructs and frameworks in place today in Venezuela, today it's uninvestable. And so significant changes have to be made to those commercial frameworks, the legal system. There has to be durable investment protections, and there has to be a change to the hydrocarbon laws in the country.
Uninvestable. Uninvestable is how Darren Woods, the CEO of Exxon, described Venezuela to Donald Trump today in their little meeting at the White House. Uninvestable. Keep in mind, this is after we've already been repeatedly told that they had pledged $100 billion or more to Venezuela. You mean we were lied to? So look, uninvestable. That's pretty clear. I had a little sliver of hope that U.S. oil executives would actually be honest with the president because nobody else does, and it looks like they were. Yeah. Now, Donald Trump said, you know, if you don't want to go, just say so. I got 25 more companies lined up in a classic used car salesman fashion. There's nobody else lined up. All the money was in that room except for Saudi Aramco. Uninvestable. Told you. Thanks.
They estimate a break even of about $80 a barrel to get the Venezuelan crude produced to market. The current WTI price is less than $60 a barrel, and Venezuelan crude trades at a discount to WTI. So the math just doesn't work. And as Darren Woods, the CEO of ExxonMobil, said, Venezuela is not investable at this time. It's important to realize it's just not the money. It appears that the Trump administration kind of views this, and we're just 1 week into this new situation in Venezuela as a takeover. Kind of like in Wall Street, and they can waltz in and put a new CEO in place and go forward. That's not the way this is going to work. More than 90% of Venezuela lives in poverty. The oil production is protected by the Venezuelan army, yes, but as Woods said, as many of the CEOs said, we have to make sure that our teams are safe when they go in to evaluate the situation. Personal safety, extremely important. As Woods pointed out, ExxonMobil had been expropriated twice in Venezuela. When President Trump asked Halliburton about going in, the CEO said, sure, we'd be interested. We haven't been there since we were tossed out in 2019. And Trump intimated, well, that was under a prior president. Well, actually, that was under Trump. And so there are a lot of disconnections here that haven't been fully thought through. Secretary of State Rubio talked a bit about that. Going in and making sure the population is taken care of. This is a country with limited food resources for some reason. Talking about distributing the wealth, if you will, the money from the sale of the oil that the U.S. is taking possession of on the oceans. How is that going to work? Is the population just going to receive checks from the Treasury? Are you replacing one form of socialism with another? There are a lot of moving parts to this. And oil fundamentally is the economic engine for Venezuela. But a lot of things have to be addressed before that can be put into gear.
Yeah, we've heard all the stories about how the oil and gas infrastructure in Venezuela has been allowed to deteriorate over the years, and really probably can't be repaired. Most of it will have to be replaced. Tens of billions of dollars, multiple years to get it up and running. And one of the things that came out of the meeting, and I know you sat through it, so I'd like to get your comment on this. Chevron promised that within 24 months it could raise its production by 50%. So it's the only U.S. major in there at the moment, but it only produces 200,000 barrels. So an extra 100,000 barrels is not really a big contribution to global heavy crude markets. And Repsol, the Spanish company, said it could increase its production by 3 times, but it only makes 70,000 barrels. So we're only talking about an extra 140,000. So we keep, there's this, the whole story seems to be driven more by hype and narrative than by actual economics and data.
Yeah, that's it exactly, and that was a hallmark of the first Trump administration, and is certainly a hallmark of the current Trump administration.
Well, is it fair to say then that it's more than likely that in the short to medium term, maybe, that really the status quo will prevail in Venezuela and probably in American oil markets? And the only one that matters for Venezuelan heavy crude is the U.S. Gulf Coast. You live in Houston. What's the take?
That's what it has to be. I mean, this is not going down to Venezuela and opening a spigot and lining tankers up and shipping it someplace and getting the benefit of cheap oil. 99% of the West Texas producers are really going to be very upset if they find their own tax dollars going to subsidize essentially a new competitor in the global market. That's not going to fly. They will be lining up behind Democratic candidates in the midterm elections. The math has to work for this to be an economic venture. Are there other reasons for having removed Maduro? Yes, of course, but oil is not the primary reason. And indeed, the industry understands that by going into Venezuela and making it another large producer again, which certainly they could be, it's going to take tens of billions of dollars, more than 100, more than 180 in one estimate, to restore Venezuela to be able to export 2 million barrels a day.
Exxon CEO, in a meeting with Donald Trump, said that Venezuela is uninvestable. The reason he said that is because the infrastructure that's there to extract the oil is in disrepair. When Chavez kicked them all out, all the American oil companies out 50 years ago, pretty much, it's all just been sitting there kind of rotting. There's no real structure that kept those things going and kept those things nice and functional. So companies would have to spend billions to get the infrastructure to the point where they need it to extract the amount of oil that's profitable. However, speaking of profitability, oil prices are low right now. It's about $50 to $60 per barrel, and that's not a good number right now. This is why gas prices are coming down. It's because the price of oil has come down. So for a company like Exxon, seeing that oil prices are low and seeing that Venezuela requires billions of dollars of investment just to physically get the oil out of it, which is already low, they just said this doesn't seem like a practical venture. Donald Trump ain't like that. And now he's playing I know you were with my playground game, saying that Exxon won't have dibs on the Venezuelan oil when time comes. And I'm just like, y'all, this is a joke. I mean, are we seriously doing this right now? Like, I don't even understand how we playing playground rules, but that's where we at. Y'all have a great day.
You know what it is, y'all. That Exxon executive really embarrassed Donald Trump, because I remember the same thing when he was talking about the oil. He was talking like he had the investments in the bag, but Donald Trump always lied. I mean, that's really not shocking. This man always lies. But he tried to make it seem like they already had these investments they were just going to have this meeting. So it did not turn out the way he wanted. Oh, I think he was pissed when he left that meeting because nobody was pledging any money towards Venezuela. So Donald Trump was left with egg on his face for real on this one. So, y'all, thank you for being here. I got one more that actually kind of fell in my lap. In Minnesota, they found $700 million in suitcases on their way to Somalia at the airport, and it got caught. So we're going to talk about that. And I have that scheduled, I think, for 6:45. So we're going to talk about that. And, oh, you know, them Somalians must be really mad. I said, wow, I guess that did not go under the radar like all that other money that flew out of here. And they said it was all cash. $700 million, all cash. Bound for Somalia. Now it's never going to make it to Somalia. So I will see y'all later. And just a reminder, I did pin my Give, Send, Go in the comment section. Again, I have to repeat this because believe it or not, people are still asking me for the link. If you don't see it in the chat, just go to my community tab. It's over there. Shalom, family.